Hey y'all, I'm Shannon Ballard, host and creator of Southern Mysteries. Stories like the one you'll hear today take time to uncover. There's a lot of research, a lot of time involved, and I'm able to do it thanks to listeners who support the show on Patreon. So if you're one of them, thank you so much. I want to say a special thanks to my newest patrons, Debbie of Lenoir City, Tennessee, Sarah Bowen of Alamogordo, New Mexico, Jill Warren of Granite Falls, North Carolina, and thanks to everyone who joined from mysterious locations: Allison Williams, Shannon, Donna, Ricky Collins, and Shelley Reynolds. Y'all help keep these Southern stories alive, and I'm so grateful. If you're new to the show and curious as to how you can listen to the first 3 seasons, those episodes are available exclusively on Patreon, along with bonus episodes as a thanks for supporting the show. You can also support Southern Mysteries at the much obliged level and get access to Audacious, my monthly podcast series about the boldest crimes and scandals in American history. You can join and listen anytime at patreon.com/Southern Mysteries, or just search Southern Mysteries Podcast if you already have the Patreon app. Thanks for being here. Now let's get into the story. In March of 1957, a highly respected attorney from Camden, Arkansas, disappeared without a trace. Maud Crawford was home alone on a rainy Saturday night. She left behind her purse, her car keys, her television was playing in the background. Her house was undisturbed, and yet she was gone. For almost 30 years, the case remained officially unsolved and largely unspoken. That changed in the 1980s when actress and journalist Beth Brickell returned to her hometown and began asking questions. The answers she found revealed a tangled web of family fortune, political power, and betrayal. And in the middle of it all was Maud Crawford, a woman who refused to look the other way. Welcome to Southern Mysteries, exploring Southern history and true crime. I'm your host, Shannon Ballard. This is episode 170, Vanished in Camden, the disappearance of Maud Crawford. Camden, Arkansas is located on a bluff overlooking the Washita River, about 100 miles from Little Rock and 50 miles north of Louisiana. First known as a French trading post, its history has been closely tied to the Washita River, and it was called the Queen City of the Washita during the steamboat era. In 1864, it became the unintended focus of the Red River Campaign, a major Civil War effort resulting in several significant battles. Camden in the mid-20th century was a modest, close-knit city that suddenly saw its economy boom, thanks to a timber and oil boom in South Arkansas. Camden was a traditional city, and then came Maud Crawford. She immediately stood out. Maud was born in 1891 in Greenville, Texas. After losing her mother at a young age, she was raised by her grandmother in Warren, Arkansas. She graduated as valedictorian of her high school class, spent a year at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and in 1916 began working as a secretary in a Camden law firm. In 1927, Maud decided she had learned so much about the law, she may as well take the Arkansas Bar Law exam. Women had only been allowed to become lawyers in the state for 10 years, so Maud wanted to try. She took the exam alongside that year's graduating class from the University of Arkansas Law School. She not only passed, she earned the highest score in the state and became Camden's first woman attorney. Maud gained a reputation for her meticulous work and her very strong ethics. When oil was discovered in South Arkansas in the 1920s, she became the go-to expert for clearing land titles. Her name was so trusted, Standard Oil reportedly wouldn't drill unless her name was on the documents. She was trusted and rarely made mistakes. She thrived in the legal world and was deeply civic-minded. Maud became the first woman elected to Camden City Council, was president of 3 women's civic organizations, led charity drives, and in 1943 helped establish Arkansas Girls State, an organization that helped young women learn how government works. She married her husband Clyde in 1925. They had no children of their own, but when a cousin died, Maud took in the youngest 2 daughters and raised them through high school. Clyde, a World War I veteran, had suffered a nervous breakdown and was unable to work. Maud lovingly cared for and supported him. When he mentioned he wanted to make furniture and flooring for their neighbors and friends, Maud arranged for their garage to be converted into a woodworking space. By the mid-1950s, Maud Crawford was well known and admired by most folks in Camden. She was honest and trustworthy. But sometimes, honesty comes at a cost. By the time Maud disappeared in March 1957, there were a lot of people asking why and who could have wanted her gone. She had no known enemies. She was widely respected and deeply trusted, but the mystery surrounding her vanishing sparked rumors that traveled far beyond Camden. Her disappearance was international news because Maud had once worked closely with Senator John McClellan, who was heading up a national investigation into organized crime. Initially, there was speculation that her disappearance could have been retaliation, a warning to McClellan from the mafia. That theory dominated headlines, and even the FBI reportedly took notice. No ransom note was delivered, so they ruled out kidnapping. From that point on, there have only ever been theories as to what happened to Maud Crawford. Within hours of her disappearance, there was a theory spreading around Camden that didn't involve mobsters or national politics. The theory pointed to secrets much closer to home, involving local money, land, and power. Much of what we understand today about Maud's disappearance, from timelines and motivations to the players involved, comes from the work of actress, investigative journalist, and Camden native Beth Brickell. In the 1980s, nearly 3 decades after Maud vanished, Beth returned to her hometown and began asking questions about what happened to Maud Crawford. Her reporting uncovered key information and eyewitness accounts that had long been buried or ignored. Her 1986 series in the Arkansas Gazette changed everything. Beth Brickell always said that if you want to understand what happened to Maud Crawford and who wanted her silenced, you need to understand 4 people who are central to the story. Mike Berg was a shrewd millionaire businessman in Camden and the nephew of one of Maud's closest friends and clients. Mike's father, Leo Berg, had been mayor of Camden in the 1920s and co-owned a lucrative family business with his brother Henry called the Berg Brothers Estate. When Henry passed, his widow, Rose, inherited a vast fortune, land, timber, and oil holdings across 5 states. Maud Crawford was Rose Berg's best friend and personal attorney. In 1949, Maud drew up wills for both Henry and Rose. When Henry died the next year, the family learned his estate was to be split 4 ways. A quarter went to Mike, and the rest was left to Rose. Upon Rose's death, her fortune, which would be valued around $30 million today, was to be passed on to her 3 nieces. Beth Brickell's research revealed Mike Berg had other plans. He asked Thomas Gowan, the head of Maud's law firm and his personal attorney, to shift Rose's assets into his control. Gowan would later admit to his wife that his job as Mike Berg's lawyer was to cover his tracks and keep him out of prison. Rose was showing signs of dementia, so Mike had her sign a gift deed, transferring the Berg brothers' estate to him. The deed was 9 pages, but Rose was only asked to sign the last page, and as far as anyone knows, was unaware of what the full document contained. When Maud learned this, she saw it for what it was and called Mike Berg out for theft. Rose's nieces were living in California, so Maud called them, explained the situation, and urged them to come home to Camden to challenge the deed, which they did. But when the case went to probate court, the judge ruled that the deed was legal. And it should be noted, the judge's campaign had been funded by Mike Berg. Once the deed was ruled legal, Mike had his own real estate agent and insurance broker appointed as Rose's financial guardian. Maud tried to protect Rose and her nieces. She persuaded them to ask the court to have Rose declared legally incompetent, which was successful, but it came too late. Mike Berg and Thomas Gowan had already set up transactions in which timberland belonging to Rose was sold to a man named Hugh Mosley, then immediately transferred to Mike Berg. When Mike shorted Mosley on his cut of the profits, Mosley turned to Maud for help. That's how she discovered the timber fraud. Maud Crawford was furious, and by early 1957, she'd had enough. She told Thomas Gowan that she planned to retire early, which would allow her to freely pursue criminal charges against Mike Berg. And Maud had the evidence to win. She had witnesses, a paper trail, and she planned to take it to prosecutors in Little Rock. Thomas Gowan warned Mike that Maud had enough to put him in prison. Mike Berg visited Maud at the law office and tried to bribe her, but she refused. Maud was the kind of person who just always did things the right way. When Mike Berg realized Maud could not be bribed, Maud had no idea that Mike and one of his enforcers were allegedly making plans to silence her forever. According to sources who agreed to talk to Beth Brickell, Mike Berg was aware of an incident that happened in 1955 in which Maud learned Clyde had been in a car accident. A stranger had walked into Maud's office and told her Clyde had been hurt. And Maud didn't hesitate. She didn't grab her purse. She dropped everything and left with this stranger to go to the hospital. Mike Berg allegedly directed his enforcers to use the same tactic. Maud had a guard dog she loved. This dog was so protective and loyal, Clyde joked that Maud had to give a command to the dog before he could approach his wife. Mike Berg knew if someone went to the Crawford house to deliver news that Clyde was in trouble, Maud would control the dog and willingly go with whoever was at the door, believing she needed to be by her husband's side. On the night of March 2nd, 1957, it was pouring rain, and dense fog blanketed Camden. Clyde Crawford was at the movies. 4 young women who rented the upstairs rooms in the Crawford house had gone home to visit their families over the weekend. Maud Crawford was home alone. Mike Berg and an enforcer, Beth Brickell identified as Jack Doris, pulled into the Crawford driveway in an old 1937 LaSalle that had belonged to Rose Berg. Maud answered the door, and Mike told her Clyde had been in an accident. He offered to drive her to the hospital. Maud didn't drive at night, so she agreed. But Mike didn't take her to the hospital. According to Brickell's sources, they turned down Washington Street, and soon after, Jack Doris slit Maud's throat in the car. Mike and Jack drove to a remote property outside Camden, which was owned by Mike Berg. He was constructing a fishing lake for his wife Helen, and there was a dry well near the edge of the water. They dropped Maud's body inside. Later that night, Mike woke up one of his employees, a man named Lee Wilson, and ordered him to contact a worker named Harry Parr. Mike instructed Harry needed to go out to his property and pour cement into the well immediately. Harry Parr followed Mike Berg's order. If Brickell's sources are telling the truth, Mike Berg's efforts to cover up the murder of Maud Crawford went a step further the next morning. Two sources claimed Mike had Jack Doris return to the lake's dam to begin modifications to make the water rise faster, submerging the well and Maud's body under the new lake. For nearly 30 years, no one spoke of this, but when Beth Brickell started asking questions in her hometown in the 1980s, a source directed her to Harry Parr's family. Harry had long since passed away, but his family agreed to an interview in which they told Brickell that whenever they were near the lake, Harry's wife would mention to them, "That's where that lady is buried." Back at the Crawford house, Clyde returned home from the movie around 11 p.m. The house lights were on, and the TV was on. Maud's purse and car were there, and so was their dog. Clyde watched TV for a bit, initially believing Maud had possibly gone over to a sick friend's house to help her out. Maud often did that, but by midnight, Clyde became concerned and began searching for his wife. He drove around their neighborhood, went to the house of the sick friend, even drove to a local cafe where his wife would meet clients from time to time. But there was no sign of Maud. Around 2 a.m., Clyde entered the Camden Police Department and filed a missing persons report. And within a matter of days, the world knew about the mysterious disappearance of Maud Crawford. Just 4 days after Clyde filed the missing persons report, local police ended their official investigation, saying they'd hit a dead end. 2 weeks later, the Arkansas State Police dropped it too. At the time of Maud Crawford's disappearance, Mike Berg was the Arkansas State Police Commissioner, having been appointed to the position in 1955. Berg continued to serve as commissioner until shortly before his death in 1975. When Maud disappeared, Rose Berg's will disappeared. Mike succeeded in getting all of Rose's estate. In 1958, he reached a settlement with Rose's 3 nieces. He agreed to pay each of them $187,000 in exchange for a relinquishment of all claims to their aunt's estate. Clyde Crawford died in 1969, never knowing what became of Maud. Months later, Maud was declared legally dead by the state of Arkansas. No arrests were made or charges filed related to Maud's disappearance, and no investigation resumed for almost 3 decades, when Beth Brickell decided if no one else was investigating, she would dig for answers. She filed Freedom of Information request, dug through every record she could find, and interviewed nearly everyone still living who had been involved or connected to the case. She uncovered evidence of influence, threats, and manipulation. And in 1986, she began disclosing her findings in a series of articles in the Arkansas Gazette. Brickell's investigation revealed that along with the 4 main characters allegedly connected to the disappearance, many state officials, including former Governor Orville Faubus, had privately acknowledged that Mike Berg had ordered Maud's killing. Brickell even uncovered an internal Arkansas State Police memo from 1979 in which officers stated they knew who killed Maud Crawford and where her body had been dumped, but the case had been closed for political reasons. Brickell also tracked down witnesses who revealed how far Mike Berg's influence reached. One source said Mike had told them, "I had to get rid of that woman. She was going to ruin everything." Another claimed that Thomas Gowan confessed to his wife on his deathbed, saying he never forgave himself for not protecting Maud. Brickell's series also revealed new information from Otis Henley, the original Arkansas State Police detective on the case. Henley told Brickell that he was assigned to the case the day after Maud disappeared, and that he found a clue and other evidence regarding the disappearance. According to Henley, he reported his findings to Alan Templeton, the captain of the State Police Criminal Investigation Division. His findings pointed to State Police Commissioner Mike Berg's involvement in Maud's disappearance and murder. He was told there's too much money involved, then taken off the case and told to leave his reports at headquarters. The next time Henley went to Little Rock, all of his files had disappeared. Brickell's series ran in 18 installments. After the first article was published, Mike Berg's widow, Helen, threatened to sue the Arkansas Gazette if it published further articles. The Gazette's legal team examined Brickell's extensive records, and the publisher agreed to complete publication of the series over a 5-month period. The Berg family never brought a lawsuit against the Gazette. Former Arkansas governor and U.S. Senator Del Bumpers knew Mike Berg. In a 2002 oral history, Bumpers shared details about a 1971 incident that relates to the pattern of behavior on the part of Mike Berg while he was in office. Bumpers shared that a few days after he became governor, he returned to the governor's mansion and found a small package from Mike Berg. Bumpers said Berg's appointment as Arkansas State Police Commissioner was about to expire, and he was hoping to be reappointed. Bumpers said that inside the package, he found an expensive Rolex watch with a price tag of about $800 still attached. Bumpers returned the watch with a note expressing thanks to Berg, while also reminding him that he was returning all gifts of any size. Bumpers recalled a state trooper from Criminal Investigations visiting him a while later. The trooper explained an inmate at the state prison was hoping for a reduced sentence in exchange for sharing some information about Mike Berg. The inmate claimed Berg tried to hire him to assassinate Bumpers, but before they could finish the deal, the inmate committed another crime and ended up in prison. The trooper asked Bumpers what he wanted him to do. Bumpers replied that someone in law enforcement should go to Camden and tell Mike Berg that if anything happened to the governor or any member of his family, they were coming for Berg. Beth Brickell's series about Maud Crawford's disappearance made national news, but still, no charges were filed in the Crawford case. And by then, the main players were either dead or in failing health. Mike Berg died in 1987. Thomas Gowan had also passed away. And Mike's bodyguard, Jack Doris, would die soon after Brickell's series began. Once the first article in the investigative series was published, Bill McLean, the South Arkansas prosecuting attorney, officially reopened Maud's case. He obtained a subpoena to interview Jack Doris, who was dying of cancer at the time. When McLean arrived at the Doris home, he found Jack surrounded by family alongside the current Washita County Sheriff, Jack Dews. Dews was a cousin of another Mike Berg employee who was angry that McLean was operating in his county without his cooperation. According to McLean, Doris was groggy and couldn't talk. Jack Doris died 7 hours later, taking his secrets to the grave. Beth Brickell's work has been the single most important record of Maud Crawford's life and theory related to her disappearance. Without it, Maud's story may have been buried for good. Maud Crawford was a pioneer, a brave, one-of-a-kind woman who stood for something, even when it cost her life. There is no official memorial for Maud in Camden. No grave, just an empty plot next to her husband Clyde in Camden's Greenwood Cemetery. Clyde always hoped she would be found, and at the very least, laid to rest beside him. Maud left behind more than a mystery. She left behind a standard of integrity, courage, and service to others. Maud Crawford's tragic disappearance continues to haunt Camden because everyone knows Maud deserved a better ending than the one she got. Southern Mysteries is created and hosted by me, Shannon Ballard. You'll find sources for this episode in the show notes in the player where you're listening or at southernmysteries.com. If you liked what you heard, be sure to follow the show wherever you're listening. And if you have a second, a quick rating or review where you're listening now helps other folks find Southern Mysteries and keeps these stories going. If you want to access more stories, my patrons get access to exclusive episodes and the full archive of the first 3 seasons. You can also support at the much obliged level. And as a thanks, you get access to hear Audacious, a monthly deep dive into some of the most shocking crimes and scandals in American history. You can learn more, join, and start listening today at patreon.com/southernmysteries. Thanks for listening.